Bose, episode 26, after a very long hiatus.
Been just living in the Northern Rivers in a different way now.
Yeah, we've been in the fucking K-hole of spirituality and moving houses, nearly killing each other, like our friendship beef. Oh, mate, I'm knee deep in the Northern Rivers beef.
Our mum has been busy in just engrossing herself in dramas of the Northern Rivers quite quickly.
And as I said to Paisley Hart, I'm merely existing. I'm just existing.
It's fascinating because I'm existing too, but no dramas in my life among the community.
Because we're different people, you know. My baseline frequency is spicy. No, so look, there's a lot of things to catch you up on. We have been AWOL for a while. Our last episode was supposed to come out, you know, with our mate, Dane Thomas, but then we realised we recorded the whole episode with a fucking metronome on, and that was not going to fly. And then,
we did another episode from there. That was when I was at Ali's house and you had
that's
COVID.
Right. Oh, when I had COVID. That's right. Yeah, well, look, COVID doesn't exist anymore in the Northern Rivers. We're back to normal now. Pretty much everyone in our circle has had it, and if they haven't had it, then they're immune.
So me and Tobacco, Vic and Rain are the only ones I know that haven't had it.
Yeah, you're good. You're sweet. You'll be fine. I feel like, you know, I shamanically processed it for everyone.
Of course, obviously.
You're welcome.
It's all about you.
It is.
I remember I just had this memory of on your birthday when we were on mushrooms, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but maybe it was Tobacco was doing something, and maybe it was popping like a kombucha with a lighter for the first time, and we're trying to do it, and then he finally did it, and you're like, see, I did that. And you're like very convinced in it, like it was like your will, you gave him the willpower to do it.
No, but it's actually, I do that. I was telling someone about this, telling Bella, I think, when I'm on an aeroplane and there's hectic turbulence, I start going into energetically control the plane. I energetically fly the plane to make sure that I don't die. And like, because I get quite anxious on flights when there's turbulence, so I'm there and I'm like, okay, cool. No, I'm not ready to die yet. I'm deciding this plane is not going to crash. And I like will my energy body to hold the plane, and then it gets smooth again. And I'm like, I did that.
Make up and stand up, make an announcement, Tebra. Just letting you know I saved everybody on the plane.
I don't need the public acknowledgement. I just need to know that I did that.
Okay. And then post a story on Instagram when you land.
No, I don't do that because I think people will, you know how much I copped it when I was sick with COVID, and there was that loser on Instagram who gave me so much shit.
Well, yeah, as you can see, truly being Byron Bay hippies.
It's big Leo energy mixed with, you know, hippie energy. I feel loved and received and welcome for my full self, my full authentic expression, you know.
So should we tell everyone why it took so long to do an episode?
Let's do it. Let's do it. We had some upgrades in our personal lives. There was some turbulence in the frequency.
Yeah.
And, I mean, in essence, wow, you know, we've been looking for a place for a long time to land.
Maybe since October.
Yeah, because we've been in between places. Paisley was staying with a friend, and I was alone in a little cottage full of spiders. Then I got COVID, and then I had a little house concert.
Yes.
And at the house concert, remember the episode where we had Bella Crowder on, the astrologer?
Yeah.
Bella came to my house concert and brought her housemate, Alicia. And then me and Alicia sparked a friendship. We hung out, and I went to Alicia's house, and I was like, oh, fuck, this house is lit. This is dope. And then she was like, oh, we have a spare room. And I was like, okay, I want to get out of the house of spiders and be in the beautiful, comfortable house and near the beach. I was like, okay, I'll do it. And there was a Groodle. So Groodles are like my favorite dog ever. So I went initially with the plan to like just spend a couple of weeks until we found our house. But then when I got there, I was like, oh no, I'm really happy here. What am I going to do? I don't want to move in with the boys anymore. I did my head in about it. And then there was one application process that you were like, can you please put your application in? And I was like, fuck. Then we had a conversation on the phone. And it was a bit of an uncomfortable, awkward conversation. It was a moan, for sure. Basically, Paisley said, I'm never speaking to you again. Fuck you, you're dead to me.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. No. What happened, I was like, all right, like, that's a lot to process. But, okay, so what was happening in my world at the time was...
You were like, you ungrateful bitch after everything I've done for you.
Pretty much. So, prior to that, like, within the process of moving up and this application, so I had pretty much taken on the whole process of applying for the houses, going to the house inspections, and delegating. Like, I wasn't the only one that went, but I was looking for the houses, putting us in, and I was getting to the point where, I had spoken to Tobacco a couple times, like, hey, look, I'm doing a lot, and part of it was just, it was impossible to get you two to look at the houses when I put them in the chat. So I was just doing everything there, and Tobacco was finishing his diploma. Yeah. So I was like trying to give him some ease, and then the point, just as I talked to him about it, was when you got COVID. So I was like, I'm not just gonna like go, hey Alpha, you're not pulling your weight when you got COVID.
Yeah. I had an excuse.
She had an excuse. She had a note from home saying, sorry, I can't do PE today.
Had a doctor's certificate.
And then, but also at the same time, a few times I had asked Alpha, are you sure you want to move out of us? You sure you're aligned? Because it felt energetically that Alpha wasn't all the way in.
You didn't ask me a few times. I don't remember that. That didn't feel real. But I do remember we had the conversation, and I was like, I feel like I'm going to be in America.
Yeah.
There was like this wavy, wobbly feeling on it for sure. But then I remember the conversation was like, yeah, but you still going to need a place to land. And I was like, yeah. True.
Yeah, we had that. So that was one of them. One of them before we even left.
Oh, yeah. I do remember that.
And then one of them at our house at Vic's, I asked, you sure you're feeling this? And then within that, just before, while you were in the COVID thing, I was like, I had been like getting on your ass around doing the applications, and then also around, so for the podcast, Alpha does the copywriting for the bios and
the spicy clickbait
titles
and all that.
And I do all the other uploading stuff, and it's Alpha's job is to do the bios, and I can't do the other stuff then usually it's until like the night before Alpha finally does it after I've asked. And so I was getting pissed off about that. I was like, all right, I'm doing the application stuff. I'm carrying the weight of the podcast. And then we did the swap to the house when you went to Bella's and Alicia's and arrived. And my experience was like, one, Tobacco and I were already in tension. So he had left to go, as soon as we arrived, to go to the beach and unwind. And I was like sort of in charge of taking care of everything else. And then Alpha got her stuff and just sort of was like, I left the vacuum for you.
Yeah.
Bye. And I was like, so we're going to vacuum after you. There's some dishes in the sink.
There was no dishes in the sink.
There was some things in the sink.
What?
Yeah, it wasn't lots, but there was just a couple, and I was like, all right, so I got to vacuum after you. I got to clean. I got to wipe the benches. The bathroom has got shit in it,
Well, I'm eye rolling so hard right now, but you can't see me. But just so you know, so it is noted. The eye rolling is.
So I was like, all right, like, don't worry, I'll take care of that as well, And then, so without having to explain so much, because not just my stuff, but Tobacco and I had a bit of a relationship dysfunction where there was an agreement broken. And
you had a little fight.
And then as we're unpacking it, the cottage where the property is, like the house that it's attached onto, the lady comes around, she's like, hey, is this your dog? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, Alpha didn't tell me that your dog's coming with you. You're going to have to move out of here.
Oof.
And I was like, oh.
Yeah, that was my bad. That was my bad. I got in a lot of trouble for that.
So it was just like, everything was like, okay, Alpha's really...
Yeah, really
sabotaging right now.
Totally.
And then a day or two had passed, and like Tobacco and I are slowly getting into a bit more alignment. Still, I'm quite in the triggered state, and then Alpha's like, when you message, you're like, hey, do you have space to talk or whatever? I knew immediately what it was, and then you're like, hey, and like, just to me, I appreciated you communicating, but at the same time, it was a bit like, oh, like, hey, I think I just want to stay here, you know?
Yeah, totally.
It wasn't like, hey, how would you feel if I did stay here, this, and this. It was just like straight to it was just a cut the head off in my experience of how triggered I was.
I don't feel that's how I communicated, but I understand that's how it may have been
received.
Sure.
And then I was just like, I just went silent. I was like, yeah. And I was like, Tobacco, you can just...
Yeah, Tobacco took over.
I was like, and there was a bit of that as well. I was like, you know what? Tobacco, pull your weight on this one, you know? You can sort out this situation with Alpha. I'm done.
Oh, totally. You know, it was hard for me as well because obviously I knew it was going to be a big fucking blow. I knew it. And I was in this really highly uncomfortable pressure cooker within myself of like, if I leave it for longer, it's going to get messier. If we get this application in and to say we get approved, and I'm like, you know, so I knew that it was like, I had to do it. And, you know, I'm sure you can all relate where you're in a situation where you know your personal truth is going to create some destruction and you're like, fuck, I don't want to say the thing. It's going to be awkward, uncomfortable. But also, like, I think that's one of my personal initiations from being up here. Has been a lot of those moments for me where I've been like, fuck.
Yeah.
Why do I have to feel this way? Fuck this shit. And I was sitting in that pressure cooker and just feeling like, fuck, I need to say something. It was awful, but, you know, it had to happen.
It had to be said.
And I feel like even though it was difficult, you know, I feel like I handled your response pretty
you handled it well. Yeah, you didn't have excuses. You just took it on. And I think it was like also probably in my energy of like, because I thanked you. I was like, look, I appreciate it. I'm pissed at you.
Yeah, and that was fair.
But I respect that you've got to say it, and I can, you know, be with that. But I'm pissed, you know, and it just came to like, I need space, you know, like,
totally.
And it wasn't just about Alpha. It was just like, you know, like other people, like Dane's like, hey, let's hang out, and I'm like, sorry, I don't have space for you, you know, like other people like, let's hang out, and I'm like, nope, like,
you were at max capacity.
I was absolute max capacity to the point where I was like struggling to even hold the like upcoming launch of Oblivion and whatnot. And that's what I had said to you. I was like, look, after Oblivion is when we can talk, you know?
Which was another bit of beef for us as well because I was supposed to be in Oblivion.
That was another thing. So then leading up to it, I'm like still stewing and just like, podcast house.
and I tried to check in a few times. I was like, hey, do you want to talk? Because I didn't want to just abandon you. I was like, I'm still your fucking friend. I want to make sure I see this to the end and see this through, blah, blah. I was checking in. You're like, not ready. Next minute, I get a fucking message like, which for the way I received it was like, listen, bitch, are you in Oblivion or are you not? Because I don't think you're taking it seriously and you don't appreciate this. And I was like, whoa. It just felt like ultimatum energy, you know?
Yeah. To me, it was like, you know, because Vic was like, what's going on with Alpha? Is she in or is she not? And I was like, all right, I just have to like go have a discussion. I'm just going to have to, because I didn't have capacity to unpack anything. It was just like, hey, are you in? Because I've asked for this and I feel like you've not given it to me, and which makes me feel like you don't appreciate what we're doing. So I just need a clean yes or no. Yeah. You know, and you went on a bigger reply of like, hey, I don't feel like I want to be around energy that's bitter towards me or around. And I was like, okay.
And I was just like, well, I was like, our friendship is more important to me than the business. That's my priority. I want to have a fucking like at least a phone conversation first. If you need me to make a hardline decision right now, it's a fucking no.
Yeah.
You know? If you back me into a corner, then you're going to get swiped.
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, it was like, cool. Like, all right, at least I just have a clean ground now. There's no area where I'm feeling like I'm giving so much and not being met in it, you know, like that it's met. Like if I'm giving 90%, you know, you're giving 10 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, cool. So then, we had a chat a few days after Oblivion, and then we're good. And then you had another moment with tobacco of this, like, saying,
That's right.
I want this, and then actually, no, I don't want this.
Yeah, well, that's been my thing. So when we had Solstice, which I think maybe we spoke about in one of the podcast episodes, we had Solstice ritual at Dane's place, and we had this big fire ritual, you know, what are you letting go of, what are you calling in? And I just felt my dark femme activate like big time, and also like some dark mask activations too, and I just felt my dragon wings really wanting to come through, and like this fierce unapologetic, which I have elements of it, but sometimes it's not integrated, you know, and it wants to come through more and more. And one of the things that I said is I'm letting go of, you know, people pleasing and pandering and prettiness and like all of that shit, and I don't want to do shit I don't want to do, which you can't say shit like that on a solstice and then not expect to fucking get initiated, you know?
Yeah.
And then it just came back, you know, how much I fawn when I am actually in a freeze response. And then I'll fawn, so I'll start saying the things that I think people want me to say because I'm like, oh, well, this, you know, this is what I need to do. And I can't see my choices in those moments. And then later I'm sitting and I'm like, fuck, I don't want to do that. I had another thing with the Spiral Institute. Like, it's been happening a lot for me where I'm like, I'm saying, yeah, cool, okay. And everything in me is like, actually, this is not a yes. This is a hang on, wait, I need more clarity. But I don't say that. I'm like, all right, cool, fuck it, I'll just do it. You know, and I've done that in sex so many times. It's not a full yes. It's like, I'll just say yes, I'll do it, and I'll deal with the trauma later. You know, that's really what it is.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that anymore. And I'm trying to catch myself, but it's hard when it's such a pattern.
Yeah.
It's such a fucking pattern.
Yeah.
And one thing I do want to say that I'm super fucking grateful for in it all is the capacity for the people around me to love me in my mess, you know, as I'm working this out. Like you, Tobacco, some of the other people that I did it to in different scenarios. It's like, because it's so vulnerable, right? Because you're risking a friendship, like you're risking a connection, someone that you love, if you follow your authentic truth in that moment. And there are a lot of friendships that cannot withstand that. You know, my friendship with, won't name the person, when they had a moment like that with me, I was just like, fuck you, you're dead to me.
That's,
you know? I was like,
I've been thinking about that.
Well, actually, because of our experience, I ended up sending them a message and just being like, yo, I'm still really fucking cut about what you did. I'm still hurt, but I also understand why you made the decision that you made, and I'm just like, I don't want to hold it anymore. You know? It's like, I still don't think we need to be best friends, but at the same time, I can see you choosing your truth over this, and I get it, you know, I fucking get it.
Yeah, I literally, when we were on the phone, we were patching things up and you were explaining the process, I was seeing Beeps and Veep explaining their experience to me, and I was like, word for word, this is the exact same experience, and I was like, not the right time to bring it up now.
But I saw that. Of course I saw that. You know, I saw the parallels. And I think I'm just grateful that you and I still have enough shared values to be still in an aligned friendship. Whereas in the other category, the values had shifted so much that the friendship was just so dissolved, you know? Yeah. Oof.
So here we are, and you know, another thing that came from that is, so throughout the process we'd been blaming Acacia, poor Kishi doll, been getting the blame for being the handbrake on us finding a house.
No, it was me. It was me the whole time. I told you, just the way I can fly that plane energetically, I can also make or break rental applications. Because it's alignment, right? You know, we live, so where we are right now in the Northern Rivers is fucking hippie spiritual conscious community, whatever you want to call it, man, like magic is the currency here.
Yes.
Alignment is the currency here. Like this is the language that everybody speaks. So even though the rental market is saturated right now, you can land the perfect place if you're fucking aligned. And I was not in alignment with that, you know, and I knew it, but I was the chicken shit, and I was just like confused, and it hadn't fully landed in my body. And when it got to that point of realness, then I had to say something. And I wish I could have said something earlier, but I just fucking didn't.
It's like fascinating in, you know, just thinking about this right now, because like how perfect this place is that we're recording in from right now, that we live in, that me and Tobacco and Kishido live in, is that like even part of the experience of moving up is that me and Tobacco compromised to your needs, you know, like we wanted to be in something like what we're in now, but we're like, cool, like we'll look for places up near Kingscliff and Pottsville and whatnot, and being a bit more suburban, which isn't super aligned to us, but you wanted a bit more of the like Gold Coast life. Definitely. You know, and still it didn't align, you know, like we're trying to meet you. And then now we're on like in a town of 300 people, 1.3 acres, 4 bedrooms, pool, spa, like multiple rooms, good internet for like this area, which is super rare. Like it's our internet's not all the way transitioned there yet, but to have NBN that's good up here is like unheard of. And like, you know, just all these great alignments and like super affordable for what it is.
It's your dream home.
It's a dream home. It's literally like when me and Tobacco did a manifestation session, like this is what it was, you know? And like even a couple days after having having the chat with you when we had a bit of the falling out moment, so that must have been like on a Wednesday or something like that. By Friday we were at Kiva Spa, and you'll get to tell your story about this afterwards, is that Tobacco's in the shower, I go hop into a spa with this older couple, and I start talking to this lady, and we're just having a bit of a yarn, and she starts reading me, you know, and I'm like, you know, she's getting a few bits, and then her partner's like, oh, she's a clairvoyant, and then she's like, yep, you're gonna get a house in 2 weeks from now. She said it's gonna be through a friend, which didn't happen, but on the exact Friday, like 2 weeks after, is when we moved into the house. And like, and it was just sort of like we got back into the slipstream of magic after that, you know, like, and she said some other things about me and then about Tobacco, which sort of is private in our relationship, I won't say, but like, it was a good reading, you know.
I'm telling you, like I said, you know, magic is the currency here. I don't mean currency by way of money, but the currency, like the flow, the flow and synchronicity and alignment is what makes life kind of work here. And that's one of the things that I'm realizing, like there's so much abundance of community and, you know, care and nourishing, like intimacy and people. And at the same time, everyone really has to honor their own personal journey and what they feel like as well. And, you know, one of the common phrases you hear up here is like, I'll feel into it. I'll feel into it, you know, like you might invite people to your party 3 months away, and they'll be like, fuck yeah, I'm coming, you know, and then like 2 minutes before they're set to leave, they'll be like, nah, it's not in alignment. I'm not feeling it. And you just kind of have to trust that it's not personal. It's just people really prioritizing their alignment and their authenticity. And that's fucking confronting, especially when you're used to living from the energy of obligation. Like, I said I would, it's this, I need to do it. It's fucking, like, that's what I'm starting to drop, is like, this masculine integrity piece of like, my word is bond. If I say I'm going to do it, I have to do it. Or if you say you're going to do it, then you have to do it. So if it doesn't feel true anymore, having the humility to recognize, well, that's the truth.
And it's addressing it, you know, it's actually addressing it, not like just doing something else, you know, instead.
Being able to speak to it.
Bring it to you know.
Yeah.
That even happened with moments before your housewarming party. I was like, I can't do it, you know, like I'm literally
so
compromising my energy.
Wait, can we back up a minute? We need to tell the people. So on the weekend, I had a housewarming party, and my best friend didn't come. Just FYI, you know. Because the theme was archetypes. It was a fucking great party, by the way. Paisley messages me.
I sent her the hermit tarot card. That's my archetype.
My archetype is the hermit. We're staying home. We're not coming to your party. Fuck you.
I was trying to figure out like a Harry, because I have not watched Harry Potter, but I know everything about it. I was going to send you like the invisibility cloak. I'm like, I'm here, just you can't see me.
And you know, and like I feel like that's also an opportunity for me to break my patterns as well, because I was mad.
Yeah, the opposite end, you know, of like...
I was fucking pissed, and I was like, how dare you not come to my party?
How dare you honour your feelings
but
when it comes to me?
Yeah, but it was a permission piece as well, because then I had to speak to Tobacco about changing some things up, and I was like, oh, fuck yeah, these cunts aren't my friends anymore, let me get business on them, you know? And it's like...
Yeah.
It's like just feeling into the dynamics of things, and I think when it comes down to it, the biggest lesson that I'm journeying is like, you know... You don't have to be a full yes in every moment, but you have to communicate where you're at so everybody's informed, you know, and that's it. It's because it's tricky. You want it to be either a, you know, that thing is like, if it's not a fuck yes, then it's a hell no. It's like, nah, it's not true. Sometimes it's not a fuck yes. Sometimes it's like, I'm not sure yet.
Yeah.
Can you give me some time? Can we keep talking about it? It's like I don't want to say no, but I also don't want to say yes.
I remember, so Tobacco, because Tobacco's like, should I write the message? Like, yeah, can you write the message? To Alpha, the first before I sent the hermit card. He wrote like out what was going on, you know, because we just had spent so much energy moving into the house, and we literally hadn't had a moment to ourselves since moving in. And he like sort of wrote it all out, and I was like, I'm letting you know, everything you list, Alpha will receive as this thing's more important than me, this thing's more important than me. Because he's like, we've been to Lismore every day, you know, we had to get...
I was like, so you had Tyron for dinner last night, but you fucking can't come to my party.
Yeah, Tyron was here last night. I was like, don't, whatever you do, delete all of that.
Yeah.
Because if I know Alpha and all of these things will be an extra, like... point of fuck you,
another thorn in my side.
Yeah. Just say, hey, we've chosen to stay home, you know, like...
Yeah. The thing is with me, and it's like, it's the same when you have a gig and it's your fucking launch or your album thing, and you're so excited, and your friend's like, yeah, I'm coming, and you're about to fucking get on stage, and you're hyping yourself up. I've heard you say this speech to me before. And some cunt messages you saying, oh, I'm not going to make it, have a great show. And you're like, okay. And then another person. And it's like a fucking domino effect of people like thinking they're doing the right thing by letting you know that they're not coming to your show. And your mind's like, I'm a fucking flop. No one cares. All these cunts. And especially when they give you their shitty excuse. I don't need your shitty excuse for why.
Well, at least me and Tobacco had a good excuse. That day was our 1 year anniversary.
Yeah, even still. I'm like, celebrate it tomorrow.
It's my housewarming party. You can have a 1 year anniversary next year. You have many anniversaries to come.
For real, it's true, you know. But also, it's like there's also many other parties to come, you know. There's many other things. So I fucking get it, but yeah. But for those of you listening, my recommendation is don't worry about giving your reasons and your excuses. If that's your fucking truth, like, just say, I'm really sorry, I know this is going to upset you or potentially disappoint you, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know? I feel like that's more honouring rather than like, oh, I've got to work in the morning. I don't give a fuck about your job. How are you telling me that? My party's more important than your job?
Yeah, especially when it's like, the thing that can come up around like, I've got work tomorrow is like, oh, we literally went out last week before you went to work, you know? Right? It's like, you've done it before, you know? That like, you know, that's why I was like, Tobacco, say in this message, we're just honouring where we're at, you know, like just say that. It's not about an excuse, it's we're honouring ourselves, you know, have a good time, we love you.
Yeah, and you know, I feel like when that becomes the standard, and you don't have to be cruel, you can do it with kindness and love. And yeah, if there's emotional fallout, yeah, like make a commitment in your relationships and your friendships to hold space for each other in your process, but also like what kind of friendships are possible when every person is actually genuinely honoring their authentic desires, right? And needs, and not just feeling bad or guilty or obligated to do shit. It's going to be so much better quality. You can be yourself and trust that the person genuinely fucking loves you because they love you, not because of what you do or don't do for them.
Yeah, and you can feel when people do things out of obligation because there's like a level of resentment or spite or whatever, you know. It's like, or they start energetically like getting really tired or whatever it is, they hurt themselves or whatever it is, you know. Like I think about when I had a day job and the amount of times like I would make myself sick because I didn't want to go to work or whatever.
Right.
And then, you know, you'd have to do the fake sick call, but throughout the day you'd have to like, fuck, I have to look or feel a bit sick tomorrow, you know.
Make yourself sick.
And then you're like the next day, runny nose or got a sore gut or whatever, and then the next day you actually have to call in sick again. You're like, damn it, like no, I don't have that much sick leave or whatever.
I did that so much.
I never had sick leave or annual leave when I worked. Never ever.
Yeah. It's the same, like, you know, obviously translated now into, you know, like, for example, trying to offer a program or a course that's not really aligned. If you think, I've got to fucking put something out because I need to make money. Oh, fuck, I got to do the next thing. But that's what I'm saying. Alignment is the fucking currency. If it's not aligned, if there's parts of you that don't really want to do it, it's going to be so hard to do it. Like, I'm just seeing it in all areas of my life. You have to fucking get all pieces of you on board. Otherwise, it's going to be a shit show.
Yeah.
All right, let's change subject.
So change subject.
I don't want to talk about the first thing. I'm bored, but I do want to talk about the second thing.
Yeah, that you're a Ladola bean now.
I'm a Ladola bean now, which, if you don't know, that's TikTok code for lesbian. I live in a household now
of Ladola beans.
Of Ladola beans.
So you saw some homos or some Ladola beans.
Yeah, I went from living with 2 gays to 2 lesbians. Well, they're not lesbians, but I live in a house.
We're not just gays as
exactly.
well. Queers for queers.
I was just dialing it up, but yeah, I live in a queer household. 2 beautiful women.
Cock-owning queers to pussy-owning queers.
Yeah, that's a good way of describing it. And you know, the what is it called, the queer agenda, the gay agenda. You know, it's real.
They gave you the Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just a permission piece, you know, seeing it in my field of possibility a little bit more. And I feel like I started talking about it on a few podcast episodes ago. I don't remember what it was. Remember I was talking about, like, I think...
You were talking about your girlfriend up in the Gold Coast that abandoned you.
Yeah, Alicia in Queensland. Ironic that my housemate's name is Alicia now. But it's one of those things where I could feel it coming back into my field, like journeying with women again. It's been a long time since I've been with a woman. And there is a woman who I'd met. I just think this woman is like so absolutely stunning and gorgeous. And I was just observing my process, being like, oh fuck, like I'm really enamored with this woman, and what does that mean? And like unpacking all the things. And usually, and I've spoken about it on this podcast, when I'm into a woman, usually it's more of a physical attraction, it's more of a sexual thing. And I'm less excited about the emotional attachment because I'm a highly dramatic woman, and I just feel like being in a relationship
don't have capacity for another highly dramatic person.
And usually when I picture my future, it's, you know, it has been with men. That's kind of that's like the ingrained roads of my thinking, right? My conditioning. And I don't have a lot of maybe like possible scenarios that I've seen where women are in long-term relationships with each other and it's really happy and positive. I just don't see a lot of it.
Do you know, on a percentage wise, not numbers, but percentage, Ladola bean relationships have more abuse than any other relationship, more than hetero, more than gay.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not trying to create that. But what the cool thing was that I experienced was probably like for the first time since I was a teenager. No, maybe not even. Actually, never. I was looking at this woman and actually having fantasies and desires for the future of what it could be. I usually go into fantasy and story around men all the time. First date's like, oh, and we're gonna do this together, and you're
First time they ask how are you on Tinder.
I'm already like I remember this one guy who was like a yogi, and I was like, okay, perfect, he's conscious, he's spiritual, we're gonna create this together. Like I go into so much fucking story in the future.
I remember the first date one that you had with one guy, and then me and Tobacco and Ben, I'm pretty sure, were like mid-sex, and you're like knocking on the door, guys, I need to tell you about this new date, and you come in and you're like, oh my god, I think he's the one. He's so this, he's so that.
He wasn't the one, guys.
He was not the one at all.
He was so not the one. Wow. But yeah, usually with men, it's a lot easier for me to have all these, hopes and fantasies for the future. And I'd never really gone into that with a woman. Like, I love the physical intimacy and the connection, but I always was like, no, I'm going to end up with a man, So anyway, this woman, and I'm just looking at her and my fucking mind is going to story, and it's like almost happening on automatic, and I'm clocking it. I'm like, whoa, this has never happened to me before, where I'm imagining myself in New York with her at this fancy Manhattan party, and she looks stunning, in this fucking gown, and I'm like walking around talking to other people, and I'm introducing her as my wife, and I feel this pride because she's so beautiful.
She is really, really beautiful.
She's fucking stunning. And also, like, not just physically, but like her heart and her essence, the way she emanates her life force into the world. I was like, oh, this is a woman that I feel I could actually create like a proper alliance with, like a long-term thing. And I feel I would be proud to be in that kind of partnership. And so I'm processing all this stuff, and then I'm just like, oh, fuck. This is new. This is fucking new. And then I realized how much I'd just really not allowed myself to have those thoughts and feelings because of fucking trauma.
Yeah.
Because of trauma, because of all this shit around it. So yeah, that's been a bit edgy.
Have you two talked about the first time that you talked?
No, we haven't addressed that. Yeah, we actually haven't addressed that.
So she's been in the field for a while.
She has been in the field for a while.
She's been in the podcast.
We've spoken. Yeah, we actually have. So it's interesting because I had heard of her. Oh my god, I'm not going to name her name.
No, don't name her name.
She can remain anonymous. But she's been in my field for some time, and when I met her in person for the first time, I just was like, oh wow, you're so light, like I could just feel her light, like her radiance. I think I was just definitely like, fuck, I really want to know you more. When you have that feeling about a person, I really want to know you more. And then it was so fucking cute. Oh my God. So I had told her, look, there's some things I want to express to you. Is it okay? Like, can I share it in the space? She's like, yeah, totally. And then she shared some things with me, and she shared like what was coming up for her and connecting with me, and I won't share details. But when she sent me the message and I listened to it, I started crying. Oh God, I'm so vulnerable. Literally like just streams of tears just coming out of my eyeballs. And I didn't even clock it as crying. That's how fucking disconnected I am around this. I was like, oh, isn't that interesting? That water's coming out of my eyes. That's literally.
My eyes are leaking.
My eyes are leaking. That's interesting. Like, I was so dissociated from my body response, and I was like, and then the coach part of me was like, Alpha, that's called crying. That's called tears.
Coaching yourself through it.
This is emotion.
You are having feelings in response to this voice message.
Yeah, Yeah,
Because you are a Ladola bean.
because I tell myself when it comes to women, I don't care. I tell myself I'm emotionally
I've seen you
disconnected, I
be
don't care.
very despondent to
Totally, because I'm like,
relationships
drama,
you've been in with women.
not about it. Like, I can act like I'm caring, but I'm actually quite dissociated because I don't want to feel this shit. And I actually clocked it. You know, this is now I'm clocking it. I'm like, oh, it's really fucking vulnerable. It's really scary. It's too much unknown. I can't play all my power moves. How do I make a woman fall in love with me? I know how to do it with a man. Take a sexy photo, show my ass, get my angles, you know, fucking seduce them with my... you know, with my fucking peacocking. I don't know how to do that with a woman. Like, what works?
I get it. It's like me with the, like, you know, the major response I've had from all women is that I have a Midas touch, right? Men
doesn't work. Yeah, like what?
At all, you know, like I remember when I was like all the way in love with Phoenix, and I had my moment like you're having of like, oh my god, I'm picturing all these things and whatnot, and I'm like trying to figure out how to seduce him. And it's like everything I do, it's like
it's not hitting.
Dip down, you know, like damn it, you know, like. Even to the extent with like tobacco, I still don't even fully know how to seduce and like, because I'm like very bros, you know, and it's like a thing that's been unlocked in him. He's like, I've never been in a like bro-y relationship with a man before, you know, like I've just got to accept that. But there's still like a bit of a wound in me. It's like, I don't really know how to even seduce him, you know, like we still have intimacy and beautiful moments and hot sex or whatever, but I don't really understand the seduction thing, you know?
Oof. Yeah, there's so much vulnerability just in the newness. And I think that's really what queerness is about. You know, queerness is getting off the beaten track. Queerness is doing, like, trying things that are different or not having a set pathway, right? And being able to go, okay, cool. Like, and that's why I love, you know, when it's similar bodies connecting, you can't just put penis in vagina and just fuck. It's like, how does eros, how does pleasure want to move through us? Like, I can't do the things that I normally do when I'm with a man. I can't just, you know, we kiss and then you touch my titties and then you touch my pussy and then I give you a blowjob and then we have sex, you know? It's like, it doesn't work with queer sex.
It's even like, so the other week we had some temple space with someone really close to us, and I kissed a girl for like the first time in a while. We've been with a girl since we've been together, but this is the next time, and it was like I was kissing her and I'm like, oh my god, I haven't kissed like this in so long, you know, like whoa, like I'm like having like let alone anything else that we do. I was just so fascinated by the way we're kissing. Oh wow, like
should we call you Katy Perry now?
I kissed a girl and I liked it. I loved it, you know. I was like wow, like kissing, like a very like a woman, but just also like the femininity of that kiss was just a whole new, and like it actually felt my Midas touch turn back on as well.
Wow,
you know?
Isn't that interesting? Yes. You know, one thing that I'm excited by in opening up to deeper relationships with women is, you know, I've run this story for a long time now with dating men in the last year of like, I give so much and I don't feel met by the men. I feel like there's this lack of generosity from them in how, you know, I'll send like so many, you know, sexy pictures or like communication or whatever, and it's just like it's like throwing a fucking you know, it's like throwing a hacky sack at a wall and it just fucking drops. But I'm excited at, you know, not all women are like this, of course. I don't want to generalize, and not all men are like that either, but even just in, you know, the few days that I've been talking to this woman, the responsiveness and being like fully received and fully met in my communication, it's like, I didn't realize I did realize, but to see it now shifting, it's like, oh fuck, actually I've been craving this, this like the generosity from another person who is willing to share themselves with you in that way, like actually willing to open up and share emotionally what they're feeling and how it's edgy for them and all of that stuff.
Maybe you called this in with your year's intention of like being recognized and
recognition and reciprocity.
Yes.
I think so. I really do, because another thing that happened recently, so in this last week, I basically unfollowed 2 men that I was relating with who are fucking shit at communication. I love them both. I fucking love them. The sex we were having was bomb, but their communication is just fucking shit. And it's like, I'm sure there's trauma there. I'm sure there's whatever. Like, I have a lot of compassion for it. But it was just fucking me up, and I was like, why am I still choosing to relate with these people when I really cannot? I don't feel safe, I don't feel met, so I just fully disconnected from 2 of them. Then literally the fucking next day, or that evening, I matched with this guy on Field, and we haven't met in person yet, but we've been talking every day since. Immediately that night he's like, can I video call you? I'm like, yeah. And he's sharing what he's been journeying, and he's really like wanting to step into open relating, and like it's like the generosity for me, that as a value, when someone is generous with their lives, with their internal realm, I have so much appreciation for that. And I was like, just in the space of that week, being able to, I guess, like spark these new connections that have so much more to give me. I feel like something is changing in my world.
Yeah, it's the more you say no to the things that aren't aligned, makes room for the things that are.
Yeah, and we know this consciously, but scarcity is fucked.
Scarcity is very real.
It's so real, right? Because it's like, if I say no to this, I won't have anything. And that is the key piece, even with what we were talking about earlier, right? It's not a full yes, but you don't want to say no because you don't know in that unknown, like, what if I get something worse? To start to practice the trust in the unknown, that you are literally leaving that stepping stone. It's going to fucking crumble as soon as you step off it, and the next one is going to appear. But there's going to be that interim of unknown that is terrifying as fuck, and it's vulnerable, and it's risky, and you're taking a risk. And yeah, you might fucking get hurt. You might.
It's like something so interesting I continuously see around non-attachment and manifesting, even with the tobacco thing, beforehand I was like militantly like going out and dating and sex and hookups and trying different things, reading different media about queerness.
Went to therapy. Did the whole thing.
I figured and then as soon as I was like, I'm done, whatever. I'm just, if something comes. And then that's when it happened, and I was talking about this just yesterday on my Instagram stories, because the whole thing around euphoria of like, Tobacco and I started watching Euphoria like a week or 2 ago. We binged the first season, and that's, there's a whole unpack around that show. It's so fucking good.
We need to do a whole episode.
We need to do a whole episode, but just the short version is soundtrack is fucking immaculate. Like the visuals looks like a A-grade music video all the time. The acting is so incredible, super diverse. To me, it's like the 2020 version of Skins in America.
Hectic, yeah.
But anyways, we were at Crystal Castle, and and I was like, oh, that guy looks like Nate from Euphoria. Ha ha ha. Keep walking, whatever. Just a fleeting moment of that. Tobacco barely even remembers me saying that. And then we go down to the local pub down the road, go check it out for the first time. Supposedly it's pretty cool because it's the only thing in this town of 300 people. There's not even a general store. It's just a pub. And we walk in and we both just look at each other and we're like, what the fuck? Like giving each other the look. And I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, the jawline, the everything, like just exactly is fucking Nate. And then we go sit down, and then I'm pull up his Wikipedia. It's like, oh, he's from Brisbane, even though it's an American show. And I look at his Instagram. His latest picture is like a few days ago on Jimmy Kimmel. You know, it's like
Wow.
this guy's killing it. You know, and in the show, without having to spoil too much, but he's a fucking psychopath. You know, like whoa, like and like great actor to pull that off. I walked past him once, suss him out as I'm going to get a beer. I'm like, is it him? And he's like pretty huge in the thing. And like, I look at his wrists and they're not that big, but then on the way back, I look at his shoulders are broad as fuck. I was like, it's him, you know? And then I was like, you know what? Like, this is a form of a manifestation in my life, you know?
Totally.
Like, I feel like I should acknowledge it. And then when I went and ordered out food on the way back, I was like, just went over to him and the girls he was hanging with, and yeah, we had a chat and it was him, and
Crazy.
he talked about the show, and then he wanted to ask about my tattoos and blah blah blah. But just like that level of, I wasn't attached, you know. It was just like euphoria is a thing in my life. That guy looks like Nate. This guy is Nate, you know. Like just a few hours later, I actually
Insane.
see him. You know, his name's Jacob something, but I wasn't attached, you know.
But that's kind of like the journey of manifestation as well, you know, when you like, it's something you wanting to call in or wanting to create, right? And then you're like on the journey to that, you often get glimpses of it, like little psychic glimpses into, hey, it's going to come, it's going to come, you know? And it's like, I just see that as a beautiful like analogy or like whatever, to show you like everything that, you know, you're working toward, you'll have like, it's an almost moment. It's like, oh, you know, and you just kind of go, oh yeah, cool. That's a sign. I know I'm on the right track. That's a sign.
Yeah, lots of signs, you know. The thing I said on my stories was like, you know, watch Euphoria, see your lookalike, end of the night, I'm hanging out with him, light work, you know? Me wanting to be a disciplinary artist, erotic, millionaire, blah, you know, like slowly happening.
It's happening.
It's on its journey, but hey,
All
you
the
know,
signs are
magic
there.
is magic, you know, but it's just not an overnight or like few hour turnover like hanging out with Nate from Euphoria.
Yeah, but you know, time's not really. I need a pee so bad. We always, every fucking episode, we do this.
I feel like we should just wrap up now. Anyways.
No, I need to pee too like desperately.
Oh.
So I'll come back and do my final thoughts.
Oh yeah, we got to do final thoughts. We've forgotten how to do the formula because it's been so long. What do I want to talk about with you while we wait? I literally have nothing to talk about. I feel we were going to talk about the Joe Rogan, Spotify, Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, and then today's latest Joe Rogan compilation that came out of him saying the N-word 22 times and all that other stuff, but just feels tiring to talk about that. But, you know, it really is a highlight of how crazy cancel culture is, you know. But, yeah, I'm feeling like I don't want to talk about the Joe Rogan.
Nah, fuck that.
You know.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
There'll be a million other podcasts to talk about that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Final thoughts.
Ooh, final thoughts. I guess trust. You know, it's like trusting that you do actually know what to do. Trusting that you do have an intuitive knowing about your life. And the more you listen and the more you make those really uncomfortable decisions while also being able to like take responsibility for the potential fallout if you create that. It's like both. It's not just like do whatever the fuck you want and don't give a shit. It's like both, you know, like actually listen to your intuition and allow that to guide you and honor your friendships and the people who love you. And I feel like that's a really great formula for living. Like trust that.
This is a bit of a side note, but it just came to me because it's been happening a decent amount more up here, is if you listen to this podcast and you haven't met me before and then you meet me, please, or any other thing about my Instagram or whatever, please don't be the first thing that you tell me,
No, you don't like that?
I don't like it, especially if they're in a circle of people, get to know me a bit more, have a chat, introduce yourself, tell me a bit about yourself. And then, when we're in a flow, tell me. But then if you tell me, hey, I listened to your podcast and, you approach me like you know me really well because you listen, it makes me feel really awkward. It makes me go, oh, you know so much about me and I know nothing about you and there's a certain expectation on who I'm meant to be now.
Interesting.
Yeah, it makes me feel really awkward. It's been happening so much up here. Even just
that's so interesting.
walking around, at one of the gyms, someone was like,
wow.
hey, I listened to your podcast. And I'm like...
Celebrity initiations.
Yeah, and it's happened, but it's just happening more up here because...
Yeah,
our demographic is the Northern Rivers.
It's funny, I'm the opposite.
You love it?
No, well, it's not that I love it, but I've had experiences before where I've been talking to someone for quite a while and then they're like, oh, also I listen to your stuff and I follow you and I fucking watch all your videos and now I feel creepy. I'm like, you're only telling me this now? It feels weird for me. Or I went on a date with someone. Remember I told you? Matched with this guy on the dating app, went on a date. We had dinner. Halfway through dinner, he's like, so I used to follow you years ago and I watched all your videos and I came to your gig one time. And I was like,
don't say it like that,
I was like, so you've been stalking me for 3 years.
Space it out is always I've luckily in my life got to hang around with some celebrities of different levels.
Yeah.
And I'm always very chill about it,
cool. And you don't want to fangirl on them.
Yeah, and tell a bit later, and then I'm like for instance, because I toured with Seth Century a few times and then after a show one time, we had a chat about the profound experience of he has a song called Violin that's about the abuse his dad used to have on him and how his dad was you should credit me for your musical talents and his dad telling him he's never listened to any of his albums and it's this big song. It's his friend saying you shouldn't release this song and he's like, my dad's literally never listened to my music, and my journey's around my dad and we had a beautiful conversation about that once we had a bit of a thread with one another rather than be oh my god, that song about your dad, that's quite personal for him, and if I were him I'd be like, cool, because people would come and tell me, this has been the experience up here as well, I've had a few people come up and just instantly tell me about their traumas and relate it to mine and I'm
no, don't do that.
I'm like, whoa, that's a vulnerable share from me and it's very confronting if you just tell me you were molested as a child as the opening line, It's I feel very unbalanced in our relationship right now.
I feel you. Okay, yeah, I can understand that fully. I can fully relate to that and that makes sense.
So yeah, don't do the alpha thing. Don't bomb all of a sudden. Hey, I've watched absolutely everything you've ever done in my whole entire life.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's scary.
That's unnecessary.
But
basically just be chill.
Be chill.
Yeah. I think what it comes down to is, oh God, it's putting people on a pedestal, right? Putting people on a pedestal. I mean, at the end of the day, we are human beings. We all go home and shit in the toilet, just fucking humans living. We just had the audacity to fucking start a podcast and talk about our shit and put it up on Spotify. Any motherfucker can do that.
Anyone can do it. It's also not everyone can do it. I get that,
Not everyone can do it well.
And that's definitely been a big initiation around here, especially with the podcast. Because to me, the podcast is sort of semi-hobby-ish here, it's not my main focus of all the things I'm putting out in the world, but it's actually among our peers and a lot of people in the community, it's actually the thing people talk to me about the most.
That's so funny. Why does no one talk to me about the podcast? They only talk to you about it. That's so weird.
Maybe they just like my side of the content.
Maybe they just listen to you because you're the loudest.
Yeah, they can't hear you little mouse. But yeah, it's actually people really like the podcast, to my understanding.
So your final thoughts are: don't be a fucking lame ass fanboy.
Yeah. Just relax. But my final thoughts are let's cancel Alpha Mama for not moving in with us. No,
Cancelled.
yeah, like be willing to sit in the fire and like communicate through it. Like, you know, a big thing, you know, even when we were in a relationship was we had things around like, cool, if you need your space, just like just let me know, you know, is it going to be a day? Is it going to be 2? Do you need a week? You know, like, and so rather than going, because it's the worst when you're sitting there in the like purgatory of like, how long? Like, is this forever?
Yeah, it's the worst.
Do I have to avoid you at parties now? Whatever it is like, communicate. Like, that was our thing. Like, hey, I can, after oblivion, I can talk to you, you know? Like, and even if that's like, if you're wanting to like cut the thread, but just at least let's give some time, like someone to know, to prepare, to go, cool, like, all right, yep, we'll talk on this day. And obviously you still run some anxiety or whatever in your body. Fuck, what are they going to say on this day? But at least some people like prefer it. I never understood that. People like, just don't say anything, you know, just talk to me when you talk to me, you know. But to me is like, communicate, and be willing to like sit in the fire, but also don't force yourself into the fire as well. Like,
Definitely.
if you don't have the capacity to hold the fire, that was my thing with Alpha, was like,
Not
if we
really.
chatted earlier, it just would be like me getting the flamethrower out rather than like it being balanced.
I mean, there's so many interpersonal skills that I just wish everybody could learn, you know, and that's why I do have so much compassion for men who are avoidant and who ghost conversations. I have compassion and understanding because I know how difficult it is when you're feeling a lot of emotion and your whole nervous system is dysregulated and you don't know what to say and you're afraid of saying the wrong thing and you go into a freeze response and you shut down. I get it. And also, just because I get it, like, it doesn't mean that you have an excuse to keep doing that. Like, I really want to encourage people, fucking get the help you need, for fuck's sake, before you keep traumatizing everyone in your relationships. Go out, get some fucking support, learn, you know, how to relate, how to communicate, how to process your emotion. The tools are out there. Don't just read a book, like, actually go do some fucking work. That's my real final thoughts.
Oh man, I have so many final thoughts, so I think I'm gonna just leave it there. It's like, do the work, and like we've said it so many times, you know, we have things available, people in our community have things available, and at multiple price ranges, from free to hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, pick your price point, and there's something available. Never let your money story
Be the issue,
because there's even free programs around money, you know, like, so
if you want it, you will fucking make it happen.
You'll make it happen.
If you don't, you will make excuses.
Boom. Let us know what you needed today. We love you.
We love you.
Goodbye. Bye.